you so much for joining us for the Clearwater City Council Candidate Forum. Not a debate, but a forum, because we've got an election coming up on March the 15th. Hope you're already registered to vote, because turnout is very, very important in any election, and this one is no different than that. This event is being put on by the City of Clearwater with the simple objective of making voters more aware of who the candidates are and where they stand on important issues. Now, we're still in the COVID restriction period, so in many cases, that's why we're doing a Zoom meeting, and that's why we don't have our masks on, because we're all isolated in our own rooms. But I've done a number of debates before and forums, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking to seat 4 candidates tonight. That will be 3 individuals, and then seat 5 tomorrow night on the City Council. There are 3 candidates in each of those races. We're planning on going about 90 minutes or so, and I've been given the freedom to ask any questions I think are of great importance to Clearwater voters. There are no audience questions submitted, but I think we'll have plenty to talk about. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the questions. You're going to hear a small bell ringing when the candidates have 10 seconds remaining to wrap up their answers. It'll sound like this. Not very big and bright, but we couldn't put a timer on our screen. So candidates, when you hear that bell, that's not a mistake. That means you got about 10 seconds to wrap up your answers. And I won't cut you off in a rude way if you do, but I'm sure we'll follow all the guidelines. We'll be rotating the answers around so that no one person has the advantage or disadvantage of having to answer every question first, and then everybody else kind of parrots along. So I'll say the name of the person before the person answers the question. You've got 1 minute to answer each of those questions. You have a 1 minute opening statement, and then you'll have a 1 minute closing statement. So it should be an interesting evening. I'm sure we can handle all the information that's going to be dispensed tonight. And again, if you're watching us now, we really appreciate your joining us, and spread the word about these forums, because they're a great way. I always have a great respect for all the candidates who are running, because they do a lot of forums and answer a lot of questions. So here are my questions that I'm going to be asking them tonight. So let's start out with candidates introducing themselves, and we'll start out with David Albritton. Miranda Douglas is also on the screen with us, and Gary Lee. Thank you, candidates, for joining us. And David, you go first, and you've got a minute to give what we call kind of your opening statement. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Al, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. You know, I'm just finishing up my first term as council member, and even though I think we got a lot done this term, you know, COVID took about half of that 4-year term, and I've got some things that I haven't completed and I want to complete. That's why I'm running for my second term. You know, a lot of things that we did complete is the Morningside Rec Center, the $5.7 million renovation of Crest Lake Park. Imagine Clearwater got off the ground. We're going vertical with that now. It's going to be open in about 14 months. You know, we started a North Greenwood CRA, and hopefully in the next years that'll all come into fruition and completion. So there's lots of things left to do. We've got an intermodal center on the corner of Court and Myrtle that I've been working hard to bring that into fruition. We've got to build a parking garage somewhere for Imagine Clearwater. And also we have to build a city hall. We've been talking about that for over 2 decades. So I've got a lot left to do on my plate, and I'm asking for another 4 years to get it done. Thank you.
All right, David, thank you so much. Miranda Douglas, now you have 1 minute for your opening statement. Again, thank you, candidates, for being with us tonight. Miranda, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, city staff, for hosting this forum tonight. Again, my name is Miranda Douglas, and I'm your candidate for City Council seat 4. I'm not your typical candidate. I'm not a professional politician. I'm not retired, wealthy, and I come with no ulterior motives except to represent our neighborhoods, the diversity of our residents, support our local businesses, and be a champion for the environment. I'm running to represent our residents. I'm a concerned citizen, just like many, and a proven leader. I have brought solutions to underserved communities in Clearwater. I have stood with you to fight and protect our neighborhoods and green spaces from intrusive development. And I have a vision for Clearwater, and that vision includes improving council transparency and accountability. I want Clearwater to be a place where locals can thrive, but we can't realize that vision with a council that doesn't fully represent us and is sluggish to act on our demands. And so our futures are on the agenda. And so I ask you guys to elect a visionary leader like myself who will help guide Clearwater into the future.
All right, Miranda, thank you so much. And Gary, who just wants to remind us that Gary, where he's from, is Gerry, but it's pronounced Gary down here. Do we have that right, Gary?
You have that correct.
There you go. You've got a minute. Go right ahead.
Well, good evening. I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad I'm here. I've attended council meetings for a number of different years. You know, why do I want to run? After sitting in the audience for a number of years and listening to discussions on a number of different things, I figured it's about time that we needed some change. We needed some change. We needed to move forward, and we needed to add value. And basically, when I look at the way that the residents, the community, the contractors, and the consultants and the employees are handled by the council, so that was a big inspiration to me to say, we need to focus more on residents and not business and tourists. That's why I'm running for city council.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. Now, the next question, we'll still go in the same order for right now because you've had your opening statements, and this one's a little bit more specific, and I want you to think about it in that way. Why are you the most qualified to hold this seat versus the other two candidates that are appearing on our screens? And David, you go ahead and take this one first, and then we'll start rotating them around. David, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Al. Well, I've been here in Clearwater all my life. I was born and raised here. My parents were born and raised here. My kids are born and raised here. And now I have grandkids here. Probably over 2 decades ago, back in the 90s, I wanted to give back to my community because I remember the Clearwater downtown area, which back when I was growing up, Clearwater is very small, probably 20,000 residents. Now we've grown to about 120,000. But I was always proud of Clearwater and the growth and the businesses and the vibrancy that we had. So in the 90s, I was appointed to the Code Enforcement Board. I served several years. And after that, I served 7 or 8 years on the Downtown Development Board. That's an elected position by the property owners downtown. Then after that, I was appointed to the Business Task Force. And in 2015, I served on the Charter Review Committee. And then after that, I served on the Community Development Board, which is the board that really is a quasi-judicial board that hears land development issues. So I think I have a pretty good diverse slate of knowing what Clearwater's about, where it's going, and a pretty good understanding of how government works and how to get things done.
All right, David, thank you so much. Miranda, the same thing, again, the focus on why are you the most qualified as compared to the other two challengers?
That's a great question, and it's an important question. And I think what it comes back to is what's most important to me is to be an advocate for the community. I have been a public servant for much of my life, and I was fortunate to be brought up under the YMCA, which is where I got the real exposure of what it means to be a good steward of your community. Since I've graduated from USF, I have served on several other boards, including our city's Marine Advisory Board, the Community Police Collaboration Panel, the Clearwater Arts Alliance, and the Greenwood CRA's Economic Development Task Force. And all of these opportunities have been with the focus of improving our residents' quality of life. And I want to bring more energy and diversity to our city leadership that truly reflects the range of our residents and their needs.
All right, Miranda, thank you so much. Gary, same question. Why are you the most qualified as compared to your two challengers?
Well, I graduated from Ball State with a Bachelor of Science in Economics, Political Science, and Mathematics. I started right off my career by solving problems. I was a math teacher for a number of years. Then I became an auditor for Signet Insurance. And I became a cost accountant. And then I became involved in IT, and then finally down here in Verizon with various levels of management and programming and analysis. All my life, I've spent solving problems and finding alternatives to problems. In this particular scenario, I see that we have a number of problems facing us. I've tackled those problems in the past. I've provided alternative solutions, and we've been successful in the past. And I think I can bring those skills to this particular job, analyze them, and come out with better solutions. We can do better than what we've been doing.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. Let's move on to our next question. This might be kind of tough because, as we've heard in your opening statements, there are a lot of problems that are pressing and a lot of things that the council has to deal with. But what is the most pressing problem Clearwater faces as far as you're concerned? And then what's your solution if you believe that's the most pressing problem? Miranda, you get to go first on this one.
Sure. What comes to mind for me first is our housing crisis. Attainable housing has to be at the top of the list of problems that we need to find solutions for, especially since over 60% of our residents are burdened by the rent crisis and the skyrocketing prices of our homes. There's not a great opportunity for young families to invest here in Clearwater with the prices of housing. Additionally, I think our environmental challenges are also at the forefront. Clearwater is at ground zero for flooding and for vulnerability for climate change. And we really need to look to using our green print as a way that we can address those challenges and mitigate any risks that might be associated for our homes, for our businesses, and for our communities. And then after that would be economic development. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. If we want to have a strong community here in Clearwater, we need to not only support the businesses that we have here, but also attract businesses that really complement the culture here in Clearwater and find ways that we can really leverage those partnerships.
All right, good. All right, Gary, same question. Most pressing problem Clearwater faces and your solution. Gary, go right ahead.
So Al, when we look at that, one of the things that you have to ask, who has the problem? Many times it's the resident who has the problem. And the resident has just not been given the proper focus. Most of the times, if we go to that resident that is having that problem, or residents that are having that problem, we communicate with them and we say, give us some real grit as to what the problem is. All my life, most of my professional life, I went to the users to see, what do you want in your program? What's necessary to conduct the business? After you understand the problem, then you can work with those residents and people who are experiencing those problems, because many times they have ideas for solutions. You take those solutions, you meld them together, and you come up with something miraculous and really good for everybody.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. David, most pressing problem Clearwater faces, and what would your solution be?
Well, we have a lot of issues, but I'd say probably that I agree with Miranda on affordable housing right now. We're going through this big boon of apartments, and just the expense of what it costs to rent or to even buy a home in Clearwater is almost unattainable for young people. So how do we fix that? Well, you've got to give developers the incentive to do affordable workforce housing, to level the playing field out, so they'll do that instead of building market rate apartments. So we've got a lot of things that we work with through the city with grants and these programs to give money to developers, and we're starting to see more affordable housing projects being built around downtown. I went to one today that I didn't even know where it was at. It was a ribbon cutting, and they took an old, almost like not a nursing home, but they developed it into an affordable housing apartment building, and did a very nice job of it. So those are the things we need to find, is the places where they go, and then how we can get developers the incentives to go ahead and build that. The other big problem I see is employees. Now, we have over 1,800 employees in the city of Clearwater, and I can tell you almost every department is lacking power, employee power. And it's not just a problem in Clearwater, it's all across the nation. I know a lot of employers looking for employees. It's just very hard right now. So we need to take a look at that and bolster our employees. And so it's a balance. We need to have enough employees to do the business of Clearwater, yet we don't want to have too many employees where we're having to raise taxes. So
All right.
I think those two issues are probably the best.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next one. Now, I've lived in his area since 1986. I'm in unincorporated Pinellas County, little spots all over the place. But obviously, because I was in the news business, really focusing in on Clearwater and that whole area, I'd ride my bike down there. So I was a little surprised when I went around this last week, knowing I'd be doing this debate, and just asking the man on the street about the Imagine Clearwater project. And do you think, and their answers surprised me. So Gary, this first one's for you. Do you think the $84 million Imagine Clearwater project is worth the price tag? And why do so few Clearwater residents even know about this multi-million-dollar project? Gary.
Well, first question, Al, do we have 1 minute or 2 minutes to answer
1 minute,
this?
1 minute. All right.
Okay, we're watching that real close, right?
Yeah, I don't know if the bell didn't go off last time or not, but go right ahead.
Imagine Clearwater. I've been following that for quite a while. $100 million. It's 84 million now. We're not finished with it. It's going to be $100 million. $100 million park in a city of 100,000. We need a really nice park down there. The council has been presented with many different plans. And in all those cases, they basically turned most of those plans down. We've had suggestions from citizens, and they basically didn't do it. Even 2 years ago, when we had the election, we had 13 different candidates that said they were unhappy with Imagine Clearwater, and if they were elected, they would change it. Three of them got elected. We made one change, and that change was to move the stadium from one place to the other. No, I'm not real happy with Imagine Clearwater. I think we can do better.
All right, Gary, thank you. Yeah, and apologize that the little bell has a hard time being heard. So I'm going to try to keep my eyes on the clock as everybody else tries to do the same thing too. So David, let's go to you. And then kind of a two-part question. Why do you think so few people know about the Imagine Clearwater project, and do you think it's worth it?
Well, we've been talking about this a long time. I mean, it's not something that just popped up last year. And I disagree with Gary. You know, we've gone probably 15 years with public input on exactly what this should be. We followed a ULI report originally that said, you know, we have this beautiful property on the water, and Clearwater doesn't have a lot of that on the bay as a park. And their recommendation was to make it a bigger park for everyone in Clearwater, and really make it so everybody can enjoy it. And we went out in the public. We had several charrettes, lots of public input, and that's why we have a park with respite area, a big playground for kids, and then we have the music venue. And those weren't things that council just made up. I mean, we went out to the public and they told us what they wanted. Now, you're saying you're out talking to people, they don't know what it is. I don't know why. I've heard about it for 15 years. I know a lot of people are excited about it. In 14 months, it will be completed, and it will be a big magnet for Clearwater. We're going to have everybody will come down and bring their family when they come to Clearwater to Imagine Clearwater, because it's going to be so beautiful.
All right, all right, David, thank you. Our timing clock is not working, so I'm going to try to keep time here. I'm going to try to keep time here, folks. Multitask as I'm looking at this teeny screen up there. So, yeah. So, Miranda, the same question to you. The $84 million price tag. Why do you think so few Clearwater residents even know about the multi-million-dollar project?
Well, I think so many residents are not aware of the process of the project because they don't feel included. Instead of being asked about what we think, we weren't asked about what we needed or what we wanted down there. I think additionally, the conversation shouldn't have stopped at just the park. It should have reached into downtown about what kind of businesses that we can place here that will really attract and be magnets and complement the park as well. I'm really excited about Imagine Clearwater. I was a user of Coachman Park. I look forward to having the concerts back out there. I appreciate that they're going to have a little children's splash pad and, some breezeways for us to utilize. And again, it's just going to come back to the entire experience for downtown and making sure that the residents are included on what that experience looks like, what they need, and what they would like to have down there.
All right, Miranda. Boy, that was, you talked exactly 1 minute. That's amazing. I'm looking at my clock. That's really perfect. All right. So here's the next question. What do you think Clearwater should do with the $22 million it's going to get from the feds in the American Recovery Act? And David, I'm going to start with you on that one. Apparently about $22 million is what we're going to be getting. Go right ahead, David.
Well, we have lots of things that we could use it for in Clearwater. To tell you the truth, budget-wise, Clearwater came out of this pandemic really on the plus side. We did not, we were under budget on everything. We're pretty flush with money in different accounts. So, which is, we didn't think that was going to happen. But, you know, the infrastructure has always been one of my big concerns. You know, Clearwater is over 100 years old, and it has been growing. And even our newest subdivisions, which is countryside area, I mean, it's 50 years old. It's going into being old. So I think we need to always be cognizant of aging infrastructure and get that fixed as we go, and not be like other municipalities around us that waits till a sewer line breaks or water line and then go in and discover they need to fix it. Clearwater's always been pretty good about that, and I think that's a good place to be putting their money in the infrastructure.
All right, David, thank you so much. You hit it exactly on time too. So this timing might be an easy way to do it. Miranda, back to you on that $22 million. What do you think should happen to it?
I agree. I think we need to focus on our infrastructure. I know that traffic and transportation is a really big issue here in Clearwater, and we need to find ways that we can really address that and help people move throughout the city. I would also like to support our green print goals on getting our infrastructure to support more bikers safely so that they can move about the city as well. Additionally, I think we need to come back to address our housing challenges and really invest in that area, and to make sure that our domestic residents are secure in their homes and are being prevented from homelessness. And I think that's going to really be at the forefront of what we can do with those funds and how we can best serve our community.
All right, Gary, you have the same minute to respond to that question. $22 million from the American Recovery Act. What do you think should do with that money?
Well, Al, many times we hear coaches talk to their players and they say, we need to get back to the basics. And they tell their players, we need to go back to the very beginnings. I think here in Clearwater, we have that problem. We need to go back to the basics. And going around and talking to different people, I've been told that I have a street with no street lights. I have a street with no sidewalks, no curbs. When it rains, I have flooding. We know that street lights cost about $5,000 each. We have 18,000 street lights here in Clearwater. We need more. We know that we're trying to conserve money by making them LED lights and so forth, but we need to go back to basics. Get sidewalks, get curbs, get street lights, fix our flooding problems.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. All right, candidates, you're doing a great job. Okay, in your own words, and if I have this title right, if I'm wrong on the title, forgive me. In your own words, explain to voters what the Green Print 2.0 Sustainability Act is. And do you think it goes far enough to protect us from climate change? Miranda, you get to start out on that one.
Sure. So from what I understand with the Green Print 2.0 plan is, it's a sustainability plan for our city to really advance ourselves in areas around climate change, reducing our carbon emissions, reducing our or increasing our solar opportunities, and really just taking this opportunity to get more green. Some conversations have been around, you know, what can we do to decrease our carbon footprint? And I know that we, as a county, have just brought in some new energy efficient buses, some green buses that we'll be able to use, and also encouraging bikers to use that avenue as well. Another thing with Green Print is that it gives us target deadlines that we can look to measure our goals by. And so one of the things that I'm looking at is our sea level rise challenges and what we can do around that. And I'm looking to Green Print to kind of guide the way on how we can reach those goals and really address the challenges that we might face with sea level rise or any climate change that might come about, especially with us being in Clearwater, right off the coast and in the middle of hurricane season.
Sure, Miranda, thank you so much for that answer. Gary, same question to you. Explain what Green Print 2.0 is, and does it go far enough to protect us from climate change?
But Al, I think what it means to myself and maybe to the common citizen is we need to leave the environment better than what we found it. We need to take steps to do that. We can talk about lots of different things that we should be doing about air pollution and so forth. And I think what we need to do is bring it down to us. What can we do? And there's the usual reuse, recycle. And with the waters rising, we need to put seawalls up. We need to just do common sense that we can see right here, right now. It's a big problem and it's tough for the individual to handle. But we can do it by doing those three things. Begin to do that.
All right, David, question for you again. Green Print 2.0, what is it? And does it go far enough to protect us from climate change?
Okay, Green Print 2.0 is an extension of Green Print 1.0 that we initiated in 2013. One of the initiatives was go zero carbon by 2050. And we reached the goals of Green Print 1.0, and we figured it was time to go ahead and reach out into the future with another program and tighten up a lot of this carbon use and see if we can get to our goal before 2050 of zero carbon. Now, it also has wrapped in it a lot of other initiatives. What we've done is council has now made a change the code where we have a 2-foot freeboard over what FEMA requires for new construction. So if FEMA is at 14 feet above sea level, your minimum floor height, Clearwater is 16 feet. So we're forcing people to go higher than what FEMA is requiring for all future constructions in flood zones. Also, you know, I'm on the PSTA board, and one of the things we're doing there, we just ordered 60 electric buses over the next 5 years. And
Okay.
Clearwater's following the initiative with that too on their vehicles.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we mentioned this earlier, and I want to hit it a little bit harder. You can't have a great city without a great workforce plan. And I'd like to know a little bit more talking about that workforce plan, and that would include affordable housing. So Gary, I'm going to start with you. What would be your plan for the city of Clearwater, or what's currently in place, or how can it be modified so that we are able to allow better housing for people that would like to work and live in Clearwater? Gary, go ahead.
Well, that's a really difficult question, and that's a big question. We're at the city level, and what I think that we should do, we have a number of different lots around the city that are sitting there vacant. And I think that we need to partner with contractors around the city, builders, developers. We need to establish what are the requirements. We need to say, folks, how can we build this cheaply? I know we've got a project under consideration right now to build 80 units. The cost of those individual 80 units is like $250,000 each. We've got to do better in keeping that cost down. A lot of times going high may be cheaper, but going wide may be safer and more environmentally friendly and better for an environment to raise your family in.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. David, same question, workforce plan. What's the plan for Clearwater?
Well, you know, we've got a lot of programs for workforce housing. One of the sad things is in Clearwater, which we have a big service industry with the beaches and the hotels and restaurants. Unfortunately, most of the people, and even teachers and nurses are included in this, they can't afford to live in Clearwater. So they, you know, you find a lot of them coming from Tampa and Oldsmar and other municipalities around us. As I mentioned before, one of the things we need to do is incentivize developers to build workforce housing. You got to get them on the same playing field as the market. You know, you can't legislate the market. The market right now is market rate apartments, and developers will build those because they can make money doing it. You want more workforce housing, you need to incentivize it. And we have programs in the city that does that. We have a great relationship with Habitat for Humanities. We just gave them 5 lots to build houses on. And, you know, we give them a lot of lots to build their houses on. And they're a great program because everybody that gets one of their houses has a stake in it and keeps the house.
All right, David, thank you so much. Miranda, same question for you. You got a minute? Great workforce plans for Clearwater. Tell me about it.
So I have a few ideas about this. You know, firstly, I really want to advocate for the small businesses that we have here, the local businesses that we have here, and really provide them with more productive resources that will help them thrive here in Clearwater, whether that be dedicated mentorship, whether that be addressing the trend of rising rent prices and they're being priced out of their rental spaces, you know, and support that just goes beyond the ribbon cutting and making sure that our local businesses have a viable opportunity here. Clearwater is also having a program with the Opportunity Zone. We have an Opportunity Zone program, and we really need to attract businesses and investors that can take advantage of this opportunity and make sure that we have a business that is, you know, able to provide us with well-paying jobs so that we can have our workforce afford the housing situations that we have here. You know, David mentioned that we have partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and they're also looking at building townhouses or small condominiums in addition to, you know, the basic traditional house to offset the cost of the housing costs that we have here in Clearwater. And so that's the plan I want to see through for Clearwater.
Okay, super. Believe it or not, we're halfway through. The questions might get a little trickier as we go on right now. If you're keeping track, this is actually our 7th question. All right, there has been some complaining over the years that the local neighborhoods are not getting as much attention as the downtown Clearwater area. Is that true? And how would you change that perception? David, you get to answer that first.
Well, you know, unfortunately, the downtown is a commercial corridor that should be, it's the heart of our city, and it should be vibrant. And, you know, just as every downtown should be, it doesn't have height limits. It has the potential for a great tax base. So that's why our downtown is so important to the city to get jump started, because it will help with the tax, you know, the tax base of the city, of everybody. Now, I know that neighborhoods are very important. You know, we have about 37 neighborhoods in Clearwater, and they all have a different flavor. It's great. What we need to do is, and the last 2 years have been hard because of COVID, we haven't been able to get out in the neighborhoods and actually, you know, talk to people one-on-one because it just was not allowed. Just like tonight, we're on a Zoom call. I think council needs to really get out and have chats in the neighborhoods to see what their problems are and see if we can get them solved.
All right, David, sounds good. Miranda, same question for you. A lot of complaining, too much attention to Clearwater and not enough attention to the neighborhoods. What do you think?
I agree. I have been one of those residents that have felt unheard as well. And I'm happy that I was able to serve the Lake Bellevue community, a historically underserved community, in civic engagement and in the public art project that brought Clearwater's first painted intersection to life. And, you know, with the support of my team, I've actually been able to knock on over 7,000 doors. I'm in the neighborhood, I'm talking to these residents, and it is a concern that I've heard time and time again. And as a representative on council, I do hear you, and I do want to work with you, and I want to change that culture that we've developed here in Clearwater to be more inclusive and more transparent so that the community can be involved.
All right, Gary, same question to you. A lot of attention paid to downtown Clearwater, but not enough to the neighborhoods. What do you think?
Well, I agree with that claim. If we look at the city of Clearwater, it's about 36 square miles. If we look at downtown area, it's about 2 to 3 square miles. In the years that I've been going to the council meetings, I can't tell you how many topics have been about downtown, downtown, downtown. We do need downtown. We do need business. We do need tourists. But we have a whole bunch of residents in the rest of the community. When I look at the facilities, we have 183 facilities here in Clearwater. Most of them are located right along Route 60 and down along in downtown. I think the council has forgotten that there's something outside of downtown Clearwater. The way that we do that is we begin to communicate with the residents, and we allow them to give us, or the city, a lot more input.
All right, Gary,
That's it.
thank you so much. Thank you for that. And again, candidates, I'm sorry we don't have that timer, but you're all doing a really good job of keeping to our time, so I really appreciate that. It would have been wonderful to have a timer going up there, but your all brains are all thinking like 1 minute, so I think that's a really good thing. So let's go on to another question. This one gets more complicated. There are at least two schools of thought about what's happening with development in the city. The first is that the process, because of excessive paperwork and slow approvals, is too slow as compared to other areas. I believe in a meeting recently, the mayor even talked about the city of Largo is processing things faster than Clearwater. The second thought is that the process is too fast, giving the edge to the big developers, and that neighborhoods affected by development have no voice in the process. This is kind of a follow-up to that other question, but it's specifically dealing with the process that it takes for a developer to get something approved. Miranda, I'm going to give you the first one on that. Neighborhood development versus listening to what other people are saying about development in the city. Go ahead.
Sure. And so again, from what I'm hearing from the community, there has been a history in Clearwater where they have left cash poor neighborhoods unable to fight back against big buck developers. The code that we have now is archaic, it is outdated, and it has been subjectively defined to benefit developers. And what we could do is encourage the planning department to be more inclusive, to be more diverse and balanced. I think what we need to think about as well is that we have a green print for the environment, but we don't have a green print for affordable housing or what our communities could look like. And I really want to work with the city staff to develop something like that so that we can be more proactive and more productive in what we do to build our communities.
All right, Miranda, thank you. Gary, and I'll repeat the question because it's a long one. Two schools of thought. The process, because of paperwork and slow approvals, is too slow. The second thought, that the big developers have an edge over neighborhoods. What do you think?
Well, I agree that the process is too slow. I live in a community where just down the street from me, they're trying to develop 34 homes. At this point, I talked to the developer and I said, you don't have a name for your development there. He said, I'm trying to get that cleared through the city. They don't like my font. They don't like the size of my font. I can't even get water. I have a water hose running out of the fire hydrant that gives water to that 34 homes that they're going to build. So we need to streamline that. We need to make sure that we major on the majors and minor on the minors. We can't continue to bind the hands of developers. They've got to go forward, but we still got to protect the citizens.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. David, same question. And I know that going through some of the past meetings that council has had, and again, what Mayor Hibbert is on record as saying, I mean, you're kind of right in the middle of this. So two schools of thought. Where do you fit in this?
Well, I wish I had more than 1 minute. Yeah, this was one of the passions of mine when I got elected last time. I'm a retired contractor, 37 years doing design build in Clearwater. I'm very familiar with how the building department works. I never had much of a problem there, but I know that other people do that didn't live down there like I did. I mean, first time people that go into the building department, very, very hard to understand what needs to be done, what can be done, for a certain project. So yes, we could do a lot better job on that. I started back in 2019 to do a revamp of the building department, and shortly afterward, COVID hit, and that got put aside. The biggest problem we have now is staffing is employees, because of the tremendous amount of work. We don't have enough employees to do it. That's the first thing that needs to be done, and John Jennings, our new city manager, is on it, and he's going to fix it.
All right, great. Let's continue on in this theme, talking about development, etc. Some candidates have proposed increasing the number of people on the 7-member community zoning board to include more specifically dedicated neighborhood representatives. Gary, start with you. Is that a good idea?
Yes. More people means better representation. The real question is, where do those additional people come from? We could say, we have to examine the background. When we get those people and we put them on the board, we can't just draw them out of a hat. We have to make sure that they're representative and they understand thoroughly the problem that they're being immersed into. I've seen different situations over the years where basically we've taken a person and they've done a lot of community service and we've put them in a particular position, but they have no understanding as to what the problem and the environment is. And so they become an obstacle instead of an asset. What we've got to do is, when we expand this board, when we appoint these people, we want to make sure to the best of our ability that they're qualified, they understand, and they'll contribute. They'll be an asset to that board.
All right, David, same question to you. Do you think the zoning board should be increased beyond the 7 members with some representation dedicated to neighborhoods?
You know, I agree with Gary that we should have qualified people that understand our code and that understand land planning and understand exactly, you know, and the Clearwater calls out what kind of person they're looking for the community development board. It's a quasi-judicial board and people need to have an understanding of the codes. I served on that board, and you know, I've served with some people that every time we had a case come up, they wanted to change the code. It's not up to the CDB to change the code. It goes to council to change the code. If you're unhappy with it, bring it to council and we can change it. But we have to have dedicated people that understand. And let me tell you, every one of those people that are on that board, 7 is fine. It's quasi-judicial. You don't want to get 15 people on there. You never get any decisions made. So 7 is fine. It has to be an odd number. But you know, I think we do a pretty good job of the people, and every one of those people that are on that board are citizens of Clearwater. They live in the neighborhoods of Clearwater. So that's what I wanted to say about that board. I think we can maybe I don't think adding any new people on the board would solve the problem, but I think we can look at how decisions are made and maybe come to terms with that.
All right, all right. And Miranda, same question to you. Would you like to see the community zoning board numbers change from 7 to include more neighborhood representatives?
I do think it needs to remain an odd number, but I do think also it needs to include some more diverse representatives. I know the CNC has been studying this, the Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition has been studying this, and I applaud their recommendations. And one of the concerns that they shared is that, you know, what is an expert witness when it comes to really defending your community? And who would know better what your community character should look like than the people who live in that community? You know, we need to have a diverse panel of socially different perspectives, economically different perspective, as well as professionally different perspectives. And I think that is what will add to the panel and make it a more productive panel as well.
All right. Another dicey issue. Here we go. Question number 10, if you're keeping track, and of course I am. Here we go. The city manager, John Jennings, and Mayor Frank Hibbard are meeting on a regular basis with leadership from the Church of Scientology, David Miscavige. Are you in favor of those meetings, or should they include more people than just the city manager and the mayor? David, you got that one first.
Okay, well, I don't think I need a minute on this one. Yes, I'm all for them getting together, and you know, it's ridiculous for me to think that we live in a city that is so much of the property is owned by parishioners of the Church of the Scientology, and we're not talking with Scientology. Yes, we need to be talking. We need to come up with a plan. And you know, that didn't seem to happen with our old city manager and mayor. And David Miscavige seemed to turn the you know, when I was elected, they had just bought this, the city just bought the CMA property. And Miscavige says, I'm not talking to anybody in the city until a new city manager comes in. So that's happened. He's been in for 2 or 3 months, and I'm glad that the you know, the talks have started back again, and hopefully they can be productive ones.
All right, David. Miranda, same question to you. Church of Scientology, they're having meetings with the mayor and John Jennings. Good idea, bad idea?
I think it's a good idea. The stalemate that we've had with the church has been too long, and personally, I'm frustrated by it as well. But what I think is the most important here is that we need to have transparency. The community needs to know what is talked about, what are the objectives, and what are the outcomes that we're expecting from this. You know, too often, too long, these conversations have been done in the dark, and the community has lost trust in the city as well as in the church. I mean, you know, and what I would like to see is really the community be prepared for getting active downtown, because that is where we have really lost our footing the most. And what I want to do is support businesses, get them ready to get downtown so that we can complement Imagine Clearwater and really revitalize that space. But a partnership is key. A collaboration is key with Scientology. And I just want to be a part of that conversation. And I want it to be transparent.
All right, Gary, same question to you.
Okay. One of the seven habits of highly successful people: seek first to understand before trying to be understood. So yes, I think the conversations between the city and the church are necessary. I don't think it should be limited to just a couple of people. I think that maybe it should rotate through. The ideas and thoughts shared in those meetings need to be communicated to all folks that are involved in that. When you go downtown, I'll go out on a limb here, it's a little scary, it's a little, not scary, it's a little eerie. That needs to be resolved. Clearwater has the potential of being such a great city. We look at Safety Harbor, we look at Dunedin, we say, why aren't we like that? Part of that is because of the Church of Scientology. We've got to break down that wall. We've got to figure out what we can do to make that downtown a vibrant area.
So let's continue on with that topic again. More than, if you believe the reporting in the St. Petersburg Times, and David, you might know if I have the number wrong on this, but according to them, more than 70 properties are owned by church members. How much money is the city losing by the fact that those members have not developed those properties, and many of them are sitting there empty when they could be producing revenue for the city of Clearwater? And David, I'm going to start with you on that.
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you that it's more probably like in the 90s of properties, and the parishioners paid more than the properties were worth, market rate. So they are all taxed at the rate that they bought them at. But the problem is they're not doing anything more than a 1-month lease. So the economic value of each one of those properties to me is nothing. And you have to give a restaurant or a retail person a 5 to 10 year lease if they're going to be putting money and they want to get the return on investment out of it. All I know is this, and the city manager, John Jennings, is talking with David Miscavige, and he told me today that in a day or so, he's going to come out with an announcement on some kind of a deal that will help the vibrancy of downtown with development of the buildings downtown. So I don't know what that is yet, but I feel like at least they're talking about it, and I think maybe they'll develop into something good.
Gee, maybe we could almost have breaking news here on this city forum. That would have been nice to have. Miranda, same question for you too, about the dilemma of having so many properties handled by individuals. Yes, they're paying taxes, but then what are they doing with them if they're only leasing them out 1 month at a time? Miranda?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a major concern that I've heard from many residents as I go out and canvass the community. It really comes down to the citizens feel like they've been shorted, that they are paying taxes on the behalf of the church parishioners that are not doing their job as residents and being good stewards of our community. I've heard conversations around bed taxes for the Fort Harrison Hotel. It's a historic hotel, and they're not using it appropriately in paying taxes. I've heard ideas about vacancy taxes as well, and making sure that we keep those properties up to code, and charging them for keeping them, disadvantaged in our businesses. And that's where I really want to focus on, is that our local businesses are being disadvantaged. We don't have the opportunity to get in those spaces and really develop our idea around economic development. And so we are being shorted, and that is money lost. And I do want to address those challenges on council.
Gary, same question for you.
Repeat the question again.
More than 70. Well, now we know 90 properties are owned by the city and members. How much money are we being lost because those properties are not being fully developed, or they're only leasing the properties out 1 month at a time?
Well, it's tough to calculate how much money is really lost. We can only speculate. We can say, what's the millage? I think 1 mil is worth $12 million in valuation, and it generates $1 million. So we've got an idea of what could be lost, but the real problem is we need to make them understand that they don't own the city, that they're members of the city. They're participants of the city. We don't want them taking over our city. We want them to be a partner in the city. We want businesses downtown. We're spending $100 million on a park to help attract downtown visitors. We want a solution that works well for both us and the church. And as with any church, if it's not a really religious responsibility, they should be paying taxes on that particular property. If it's religious, then just like any other church, they deserve the tax exemption. But we want them to work with them. We want to understand, and we want to identify the impediments.
One thing that was also brought up earlier was about City Hall. Where do we stand on a new City Hall? How much money should we spend? Where should it be put? You probably all have ideas. I'm going to start out with you, Gary. How much should be spent? Where should it be put? And what should be in it?
Well, if we look at what some of the other cities are doing, I think Dunedin's going to spend $50 million on their City Hall. Largo's going to spend a significant amount of money on their City Hall. What we should be spending, we've got a lot of buildings down there. Do we really want to vacate all of the buildings that we've got there to try to just get everybody into one building? I don't think that's the solution. I think we need an administrative hub that's close to the others. We have telephones, we have Zoom, we have a number of different ways that we can communicate with the other people. I think we should be spending somewhere around between $20 and $30 million for that building. Where should it be? We're having difficulty selling our existing City Hall. That existing City Hall had become an icon for years and years. I don't have a problem with building it there. I know that people are looking at that as revenue property for Imagine Clearwater. But what better place to put a City Hall than at the apex of a beautiful park that we're building down there?
All right, David, same question for you.
Well, I've had my ideas where I'd like to see City Hall. I'm trying to get the PSC bus station moved from the 500 block over to the corner of Myrtle and Court. And then I wanted to do a parking garage on the 500 block and put City Hall on top. Now, I know it's expensive to put City Hall on top of a 7-story building, but after talking with John Jennings, our new city manager, one of the problems is that he sees coming into this city with a new perspective is he sees we're broken up into little parcels. The municipal services building has some City Hall employees. We're in a high-rise downtown with not enough space, so we have some City Hall employees in there. We moved out 3.5 years ago to build a new City Hall. I want to see a new City Hall built soon, and I think the best place to build it is right next to the municipal services building, where you could combine everybody together in a hub. And I think probably they're going to spend between 20 and 30 million on that. We don't need a Taj Mahal, but we need a nice City Hall. We're Clearwater. We can't be shown up by Largo or Dunedin. So,
All right, David, thank you so much. Miranda, same question for you. City Hall, how much did we spend? You got any ideas where it should go?
I agree. We do need a city center, and I believe that placing it near the municipal services building, near the police department, near the bus transportation center is going to be a key area. It's going to allow the residents to have a place where they can be served efficiently, as well as, a common area as well. And when we think about cost, I think cost begets quality. What I really want to see the City Hall serve the community in a way that is advantageous for us, is convenient for us, and will also support us in our needs. And so I don't have an exact number. I've heard a few numbers be thrown out, 50 million, 16 million. I just want to make sure that at the end, we have a city center that really does serve the community in the best way possible.
All right, getting on the last 2 or 3 questions now. We've seen a lot of posts and tweets and videos on social media concerning this election. Are there any videos or posts you feel are inaccurate about you or your past that you would like to correct during this conversation, or misperceptions of who you are as a person and why you're running? We start out with Miranda on that question.
Fortunately for me, I have not been a victim to anything like that. I'm a pretty straight edge and I'm a pretty open book. And so quite naturally, everything that has been said about me is a true reflection of my character and my commitment to service. I am proud to be a Pinellas County native, a USF graduate, and a true community servant. I think it's really important for the community to know that I am active in the community, that I do want to work with you, and that this is an opportune time for us to make history in Clearwater with bringing in and electing a young, passionate official that is ready to work on the behalf of the neighborhood.
All right, Gary, same question to you. Any posts or tweets or any misperceptions about you that are out there that you'd like to correct for the record?
I don't think there are any that I need to correct. I think I haven't, much like Miranda, I haven't seen a lot of negative posting. I know at the very beginning of this campaign, I talked with Councilman Albritton, and I said, I am not going to go back into the past and dig up dirt. And Mr. Albritton said, I'm going to be the same way, Gary. We're going to go on the merits of the individual from this point forward. I think between the three of us here, there's not a lot of, I'm not aware of what you're talking about between us three. Maybe on the other seat, there might be something like that going on. But in this particular seat, I think all of us are pretty straight shooters.
I love it. Everybody's smiling and chuckling on this one. You know what's coming tomorrow night. Okay, I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but let me ask the same kind of question to you, because you've been in public service for quite some time. And anytime you're in public service, I was in television for 50 years, and I cannot tell you how many bizarre things were said, both positive and negative, that I just scratched my head. So anything out there, any misperceptions about who you are as a candidate that need to be corrected?
I don't think so. I don't really like a lot of social media. I don't go and look at all the YouTube postings of everybody. I think this race has been a relatively gentle race. And we were at the East Gateway meeting last night with Gary and Miranda. And, I meant it when I stood up and I said, congratulations. I think these two running for this seat shows that they have a commitment to their community. I mean, I'm for that. I'm proud that they both stepped up. And campaigning is not easy. It's hard. And in this climate nowadays, which has a lot more vitriol than 4 years ago when I ran. I mean, 4 years ago, there were hardly any bad things that said, but now you can go on social media at any time and see just bad stuff. But it's been a relatively tame race, and I'm glad it has.
So this goes along these lines. As a public servant, and that's what that you will be if you're elected, you have a responsibility to respond, to the public on certain things and stuff. So my question to each one of you is how are you going to handle social media? How are you going to handle it? And try to sort out what we consider to be viable comments versus those that are just off the wall. And Miranda, I'll start with you.
Social media is a communication platform. That is what it is there for, to tell our stories and to connect with other people who have the same values or same ideas. For me, being a public servant and an aspiring city official, it's going to be continuing to have that conversation and making sure that we're having shared dialogue around the ideas or aspirations that the residents have for the city, being transparent and being inclusive. That's really what the community wants. And so if we have to do a little bit of entertainment on social media to help educate the community on what's coming up, what's possible, and how we need their help, we got to use that platform to communicate, but I don't think it's a deterrent. I think it's an opportunity for us to really leverage that and really find ways that we can move forward as a city.
All right, Gary, same question.
Well, I believe that the social media does a lot of good for the community. I believe that Clearwater many years ago tried to answer that question. We have a really good website. We have a place where citizens can come to that site and say, I think there are almost 50 different newsletters that and these emails that we have on that site that they can check one or all, and they can become involved and hear what's going on. The other thing that I think the city has already done is they've got an incident report where you can basically write and ask any question you want. Like I asked, how many street lamps do we have? I got an answer. I think we need to expand that a little bit, and we need to, instead of pulling information from our residents, we need to push information to them. Example, I woke up one morning and there's a 30-ton lift sitting in my yard with broken sidewalks and everything. I should have gotten a call to let me know that they were going to place that on my property. The city needs to interact. They have the tools. We just need to implement the tools to communicate with our residents. Our residents need to be first.
All right, David, same question to you. How are you going to handle social media?
Well, you know, when you become a council person, you're under the Florida Sunshine Law, and you can't communicate with any other council member except on a noticed meeting on the dais. And what I found when I first came on board, every email that comes to me goes to every other council member and is public record for everybody to read. So I could not take calls from Messenger and Facebook from people that had concerns, or I would have to cut and paste and send myself an email with that, you know, whatever we were talking about. It had to do with city business. It's got to be public record. So that's the only thing about social media. When you become a council member, everything is on the up and up. Everything's visible. You got to take great pains in making sure that whatever you're talking about, and you got to let people know when you write me something in a question and you're writing to me as your council representative, everybody in the city is going to see it because it's public record. But I think we should go out and use public media. I think we should throw a big cast net out for as much ways to communicate with people as possible. And, you know, everything should come in and be transparent to everyone. So it doesn't seem like there's anybody talking behind anybody's back.
So here's another question. When you talk to people, and I've been around the area to go out to the beaches and stuff, and you see all this development, and particularly along the US 19 corridor, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, well, there's a 500 unit condo going up, and oh, here's another one over here, and oh, here's another one here, and here's another one. When is enough enough? And who's responsible for saying enough is enough? I'm going to start out with you, Gary.
We have codes. The codes have been in effect. Obviously, they need to be updated. The codes change depending upon which location that you're in. If you're not breaking the law and a person buys the property, how can you stop them? So that takes us back to then the way that we help develop the community is to have a plan in progress. I know we talked about Clearwater 2045 some time ago. And what do we want the city to look like? What we need to do is have those plans, and we need to stick to them. When developers come along and they ask for a variation of that particular plan because the property hasn't been used, the council needs to say, no, that doesn't fit with our vision.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to stay within the guidelines of that particular vision.
All right, David, same question to you.
Okay, so I just want to set the record straight. We have a brand new code for the US 19 corridor called form-based code. It's just been put together several years ago, and it's hard. Developers aren't even used to it. because it's different than any other code we've ever had. It does lay out a plan for activity centers all up and down US 19, surrounded, small activity centers surrounded by residential. That is what we really would like to see. Now, again, I said you can't legislate the market in a lot of cases where those apartments are being built. They were once office buildings. Office building market in the sprawl of the old days where they sprawl it out is no longer viable. So those people, those developers took over those office areas and built apartments. And apartments aren't a bad thing. We need people in Clearwater. We're a redevelopment area, so we don't have any new areas to go. Something has to be knocked down for something to be built. But believe me, we have codes for that, and we guide that. Hopefully, you know, over the years, it gets developed as the vision is put out.
Okay, Miranda, same thing to you. And I realize the county's got a lot to do with this, and I'm not leaving them off the hook here, but I'm just talking about the city of Clearwater. I'm just talking about what's out my front door now. It's like, I can't believe all the storage units. There must be a billion of them on US 19. Miranda, go ahead.
So from what I understand about the US 19 developments is that we are looking to have more housing because Clearwater should be that community that is resilient and really does foster growth. And with these new housing developments, we're hoping that the revenues come from them we can continue to use throughout the city to activate these activity centers, as we mentioned, and really develop a culture here in Clearwater that we can be excited about and be proud of. You know, but like you said, sometimes enough is enough. And we really do need to look at how we can refurbish these spaces or reactivate them in a different way that really complements the community. I think it's right now, housing is at the top of our list, and we're looking to address housing through these developments. And it's a way forward. It might not be the most convenient way or the most appealing way right now, but in order for us to move forward, we do need to look at these mixed income opportunities and address housing.
I think I've been down here since 1986, and it's always been the joke that once I got my car across the Florida border, could we please shut it off from everybody else? Oh, well, it doesn't work that way. All right, we got one more question I'm going to ask, and then we're going to do our closing statements. But is there a good old boys club? Now, I understand I've been covering politics a lot of years, and the definition for good old boys club, it can include women as well. So it makes it difficult sometimes for opposition candidates to get elected to council seats. Is there a good old boy network going on in Clearwater, which can include women or not? And I'm going to start with Gary on that question.
Yes. Yes, there is. As a candidate, I haven't been a face that's been seen a lot. What I have noticed is that I've been basically shunned a lot. I've gone into city council meetings, I've gone into other types of meetings, and they go, well, you're a white man. You shouldn't be experiencing that. But I am. And I don't think it's because of my race. I don't think it's because of my sex or my size. I think that I'm not part of that good old boys club. And because you're not part of it, it's more difficult to get anything done, to have questions answered, and to feel part of what you want to go forward. What I would expect is the right hand of fellowship. David and I, again, we sat at breakfast, and at the end of the breakfast, we signed each other's petition cards to get on the ballot. I asked other council members, will you sign my petition card? Their answer was, no, I have friends and I can't betray them. No, I won't sign your card. You'll have to go elsewhere.
All right, Gary. Great. Thank you. That's a minute. I appreciate it. David, is there a good old boys club? And it isn't, of course, let me just be honest now that I'm over 50. It doesn't have to be age specific. Okay. So, David.
Well, the Times called me and they brought that up and said, one of the candidates thinks there's a good old boys club. And I go, well, I think I'm a good man and I am an old boy. So, but I said, please don't use that. I mean, to me, that was very, not a good connotation. I said, please do not use that. And I really don't think that there's a good old boys club in Clearwater. You know, there's a lot of people that were born and raised here and love Clearwater, and they've lived here all their lives. I'm considered one of those people. I love Clearwater, and I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it be the best it could be, but I don't feel like I'm, connected to any club of any kind. I mean, I know there's other people in the community that have served for decades because they have the same vision I do. But, you know, we're not a club. But that's what takes communities, that long-term vision to see, you know, that gets things done in a community instead of a turnover. Now, I'm open for everybody. Like I said, I'm proud of these two that they ran. There's nothing that I'm saying, no, you don't need to be running in my race. Hey, have at it. I love when people are involved in their community, and I welcome it.
All right, David, thank you so much. Miranda, and your response to that?
So whether you want to call it a good old boys club or the establishment or a network of friends, there is a perceived barrier in the representation of the panel that we have. You know, my platform is that I am not a wealthy, retired advocate of the community, lifelong resident of Clearwater. I'm a Pinellas County native. I am young and I am passionate about my community. And I just so happen to really love Clearwater as well. And I want to be represented by the people on the panel, but they don't look like me. We don't have the same life experiences. We don't have the same economic perspective. And so it does take away from the value of what others can offer to the community council, to the city council, you know, as well. This is an at-large city-wide election. And it is very difficult for people like myself to represent the entire city or gain the support of the entire city. We are at a disadvantage because of the way that the election is formatted. And that is something I'm also looking to address as well, you know, because of the way that things are, the things will remain the same. And if the community wants change, we're going to have to start to vote for different. And I hope to be a representative in that front.
All right. Well, great. Well, I'm impressed with all three of you. This has been a fun time for me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, getting some answers. And I've learned a lot from all three of you, especially in terms of some of the policies that are currently existing. And I don't live in Clearwater. Technically, that's my mailbox, but I love the city. I love everything about it. I've been here since 1986. I've only got good things to say about that place. I've wrecked my bike 4 times on the Pinellas Trail, all within the city limits of Clearwater, but that's got nothing to do with it. I survived, but I love being outdoors. So let's go into our closing statements right now. And again, I just want to say thank you so much. And for those of you that are watching, I hope you've gotten a really good idea that these candidates really have great ideas and they deserve your attention. They each would like to have your vote. And that's what we're going to do right now with a closing statement where I'm going to ask them to ask you for your vote. And we're going to start out with you, Miranda, then we go to Gary, and then David will be the last. Miranda, go right ahead.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Al, for leading us in this opportunity. And to my neighbors, after all you've heard tonight, I really hope that we can agree that Clearwater is in need of leadership that goes beyond the status quo. When you think about what we envision for Clearwater, what it will look like, what we want our city to be in the next year, the next 4 years, the legacy for our city, we must elect a representative that will support us in this mission. I've heard too many times the community doesn't feel heard by the council. They wouldn't be included. They want better. And I agree, you do deserve better. I hear you and I want to work with you. And as your candidate for seat 4, I look forward to working with you to reach the goals for the city. So take this opportunity to ensure your future in Clearwater with a leader like myself who is committed to serving the city of Clearwater.
Miranda, thank you so much. Gary, you've got a minute to tell us why people should vote for you.
I've tried to demonstrate that my primary concern is putting residents first, listening to you. One of the skills that I have developed over the years is I've been called the listener. I listen more than I talk. People say, well, he's quiet, he's reserved. No, I'm listening. And that's the skill that I think I bring the most to the council here. I want to hear what your concerns are. I want to deal with your concerns. I want to make Clearwater a very wonderful experience for each and every resident I want them to have health and safety. I want them to have lights and sidewalks. I don't want them to fear about flooding. I don't want them to fear about, well, curbs. I want you to feel like Clearwater is a great place to live. I want you to feel like I want to raise my kids here in Clearwater, as Linda and I have done. We've raised our kids here. We love it here. We've been here for 30 years. Please vote for me. I'm trying to represent you and putting you first. Thank you.
All right, Gary. And David, you are the incumbent. You now have 1 minute to tell us why you want to be reelected. Go ahead.
Well, I've lived here 71 years and I love Clearwater. I have a passion for seeing it the best place to live, work, and play. And all I'm asking for is another 4 years. I'm not a career politician. I've been involved with Clearwater for over 2 decades. I just want to see it better. I'm trying the hardest I can. I do so much more than just council. I'm the representative of the MPO with Fort Pinellas. I'm on the PSTA board trying to make better transit to people of Clearwater. We have a lot of things that are going to happen in the next 4 years. I think that I didn't get a full 4 years out of the last 4 years because of COVID. And I know we can complete a lot of the things in the next 4 years. So please vote for me. You can read more about me on my website, voteallbritain.com, spelled with 2 L's. And it tells a lot more about what my passions are. Thank you.
Great. Candidates, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated getting to know you all a little bit better. Just a reminder, tomorrow night, 6:30 to 7:30 or thereabouts, 7:35, we'll be talking to those people that are running for seat number 5 on the Clearwater City Council. Again, thank you so much for your time, candidates. I really appreciate you all spoke for exactly about 1 minute on every question, so you made my job so much easier. Take care and
thank you so much, Al.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Take care now. And
Bye.
thank you, audience. Don't forget, March 15th, get out there and vote.